Maree, and so I had a gastric bypass 2.5 years ago. So it's been a little while. I've lost around 85 kgs, and so definitely just super life-changing. So yeah, just like it's a huge amount. So that's kind of my background of bariatric surgery.
Um, so what do you want to do? Do you want to just like, shall I read something out first? What do you, or just want
Yeah.
to chat around things?
Oh, yeah, we'll just go for it.
Just go for it.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna choose. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna choose a random post and I'm gonna read it out and let's just have a chat about it. All right. I want you to cast your brain back a little while because it's been a while for both of us. Protein struggle when moving to puree stage. I got the okay to move to puree stage yesterday and missed my protein goal for the first time in 2 weeks. It wasn't short. I got 54 grams and my daily goal is 60 to 80. But during the liquid phase, I was hitting 90 to 100 most days. I made a yummy cottage cheese bake. No, I read that wrong. I made a yummy cottage cheese bake. I'm guessing it's like a cheesecake. But I was so full after a quarter of a cup serving with only 8 grams of protein that I struggled to get in a shake to meet my protein goal. What were or are your favorite really high protein purees? How do you balance the fullness from eating food again with hitting that goal? Wow, this is an interesting one, eh?
Yes, it is. So I think kind of back in, when I go right back, I actually did not focus so much on protein. I focused a lot more on water. I was having the protein shakes as well, but one thing that really helped me is I pureed, which I know is kind of weird, but like little mints, and put them in the little ice packs. So it was little cubes, so it was really little. But I did not worry if I didn't finish it at all. I very much trusted what my stomach felt. I was eating really slow, chewing felt like 1,000 times. um, but it was completely fine for me, and my dietitian was happy with it to not finish it at all. And I think, when you're that new, protein is those goals is definitely not what you need to focus on. And so my advice is not to worry about finishing that meal, and don't
Yeah.
worry so much about your protein because it's still a load of protein that you're getting in.
My first thought was, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. Um, Ideally, we don't need to be finishing that amount of protein, like hitting our protein goals till like a year post-op. So, the fact that you were even getting in 100 grams post-op was huge. And yes, granted, it was probably a lot of liquid, but also, yeah, we don't need to be focusing on that right now. And the fact that you were saying you were so full after a quarter cup serve, yeah, that's you shouldn't be pushing yourself further than a quarter of a cup right now. Like that is totally where you should be at. So we should be aiming for a quarter of a cup like 3 months post-op. So you are yeah, you are right at the limit of that, and I wouldn't expect you to be having more. Some people will have days where they can have more or less, but yeah, I can't even imagine doing much more than that when I was at that stage post-op.
Yeah, and I think also it's so hard to kind of change your mindset that you don't have to be that full. Like you're so used to it, right? Like pre-surgery, you can just keep eating, and it's just a different feeling. Whereas now it's super important not to keep eating to that fullness. Otherwise, yeah, you'll regain
Yeah, yeah.
ultimately.
Even though you're in that losing stage. And also,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, in that honeymoon stage, it's so important that we start to not push boundaries too
Yes.
hard and fast. Otherwise, you are going to get to that place where you're constantly pushing it and pushing it. And if you're just coming out of that liquid phase and you're just going into more solids or puree, your tummy is still healing. Like,
Yes.
and it's scary if you're already trying to push it that much further. Um, and I don't know whether or not this person has a gallbladder, but that's going to start feeding into it too. If they have a gallbladder and they're adding really high fat content, then that can cause gallbladder issues long term as well. There's just a whole heap going on here, and I think some of that's lack of education, right, Maree? Like we just
Yes.
you don't know what you don't know, and I'm not
Yep.
trying to make this person wrong whatsoever, but it's around just that awareness. Like, dietitians come up with all sorts of interesting concepts sometimes, and it's actually like, okay, but the lived experience, the actual reality is that this is not even possible and shouldn't be possible. This is why you had surgery. It was not so that you could drink all your protein all the time and push yourself. It's give that tummy some time to heal. Otherwise, the last thing you want to do is cause a rip in those sutures or staples and end up with a leak and sepsis, and it can go really badly. So we're going to
Yes.
treat our really little tummies really kindly at this stage.
Yes, definitely. I was always super worried about that happening as well, like getting too full and then causing a leak. So that was something that I was quite paranoid about.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. I
Yeah.
totally get it. That was why I avoided popcorn for the longest time. I don't know why. I got it in my head that popcorn like was going to cause major issues to my suture line and or my staple line, and I was like, no, I'm not eating them, not eating them. The kernels are going to get hooked underneath them and
Yeah.
cause all these issues. And yes, I don't recommend it at this stage post-op either. But I think my anxiety around it was a lot higher than it probably should have been. But it's just funny what our brains get stuck in.
Right, yes.
But yeah, so I guess high protein purees, just go back to your like casseroles and stews and all of those are great. Especially because they mush down to nothing.
Yeah.
And it's harder at lunchtime. Like I definitely think that lunchtime is probably the hardest meal when you're on puree because you're like, what do I eat? But I think back then I just had tins of tuna or a mashed egg or that kind of thing just to see me through. Not that you're eating very much, so you can make a portion of that and it'll last a few days, so that's nice and easy.
Yeah. I totally had my ice cubes for lunch and for dinner. It was just because I didn't have too much energy, so it was just super easy for me. I'm like, oh, perfect. And I did put in a bit of protein powder as well, just to make me feel like I was getting a bit of extra protein.
Do you remember hitting that wall at like 3 weeks post-op? Like I feel like I was dying. I was like, I could barely lift my head out of bed, let alone function, and it's amazing. It's amazing how much your body can survive with how little. But at the same time, it's like, oh my goodness, the energy levels. I was just functioning on raw passion for life at that point, I think.
Yeah. Yep, there was not a whole lot of energy, but it comes back.
It does come back. It does come back. Oh, thank God.
Yes.
Because I don't know if I would have had the will to survive, but it
Right.
stayed around for very long. But yeah, no, it's such a wild journey, and I reckon that first month post-op is probably one of the hardest of the whole journey. Not like so you've got kind of this excitement that leads up in that pre-op stage of doing the shakes, and it's hard. Like, don't get me wrong, it's really hard, but you've kind of got this finish line of, oh, this is exciting, and then you get to that first month post-op, and you're like, holy moly, what the heck have I done?
Yes. And then I think I was also really worried because I didn't know whether like, had I done something wrong? Like, had I bent over and, copped a stitch or something, like I was quite worried that I was doing the wrong things without knowing. And then it was gonna, yeah, go crazy.
I had someone message me actually the other day, and I thought this is interesting, and I don't know if you've heard of it. But someone was talking around, particularly for us sleevers, what happens is they have one port that usually that upper right port that they actually put all the instruments in for surgery, and that tends to be where they pull your stomach out. Obviously, for your bypasses, they leave your stomach in, generally speaking. I assume most surgeons do that. But that side they tend to do a muscular suture as well as your top stitching, and it can be really pulley and quite sore. But I had someone messaging me, and she's like, "Oh, it's called your second belly button," and I was like, "I've never heard of that before. Have you heard of a second belly button?"
No, I have not, but I have heard that it's happened to a few people and kind of caused a little bit of an indent, but not a second belly button.
Yeah, I was like, that's kind of a random name. I wonder if that comes from overseas or not. But yeah, so it's like, oh, okay, interesting. Like, yes, it does cause it goes away, but it does cause a lot of an indent. I found an ice pack really, really good for that side, particularly. That was my worst pain, other than obviously the gas pain post-op. I think this is going back this is going back a wee while for me. Like I'm 7 years post-op now and I'm like, oh, I remember, but I do remember that quite clearly. And yeah, that pulling. It was very much, it almost felt like you had a rubber band inside that was like, ooh, ooh, every time you kind of moved a certain way. But yeah, the second belly button really threw me. I was like, oh, I don't know about that one. But I assume, yeah, like you said, it's probably around that indentation. I just had never heard it called that whatsoever. So yeah, that was funny. All right, shall we do another one? Shall we do
Yeah,
another?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right, this is a longer one. All right. Gas, lactose intolerance, vitamins, I have no idea. I'm in the middle of purees. Oh, we're going back to the program again. Puree, mashable, and soft foods. They all kind of run together. In the last 2 weeks, there has been some kind of change, and I have this awful pressure that builds up inside. It feels like gas, but does not like to go away. I've been in contact with my dietitian and what I've been eating. I know most of what I've been eating can cause gas, but I've always been able to use Gas X, which I'm guessing is kind of like your so the antacid type powders to relieve the pressure. I've been eating recipes using ricotta cheese, cottage cheese, sweet potatoes, various beans, etc. And I've never had issues with any of these types of food before. The vitamin that I'm using can cause a bit of pain. Interesting. So I've paused it for a bit, but nothing ever really went away. So I've started back on it. It's been 1 month since surgery. This is the first time that there's been an issue. I'm finding that when I eat real food for protein, such as ground turkey, or mince, scrambled eggs, the pain is not as bad. So now I'm trying to find a variety of non-dairy products to eat that are still rich in protein and sound appetizing. I'm thoroughly sick of protein shakes. Oh yeah, I relate to that one.
Yep.
Clear and milk-based. And just the thought of one right now makes me feel nauseous. I can't tolerate, no, sorry, can lactose intolerance develop after surgery? I've never had an issue before, and right now it seems to be the direction I'm leaning towards. Any ideas? I'm going to see what's at the store as far as lactose friendly, but having never dealt with this before, I'm looking for a starting point. Lots to unpack there too, eh?
Yeah, so I definitely think it probably is the cheese, the ricotta cheese, definitely. And I think also people can become lactose intolerant after. Like I just think your stomach's a lot more sensitive now. So and especially then knowing that when she's having those other protein like meats and things, she's not having that gas. So I definitely think that would be my recommendation is, yeah, focus on those real protein.
Real
But
protein.
also same boat I hear on those protein shakes. I don't have them either for quite a long time. And I think if anything, if you were trying to get your protein up, I would look at protein water just to avoid yeah, if you still need it a bit more. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would be trying to cut out that dairy, definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of, well, there's a good few things that could be at play here. So, after surgery, our tummies are so small. And so you might have been slightly intolerant to lactose or dairy before surgery. But when the surface area of what your stomach is has gotten smaller, now that inflammation is really like precise in that one area. And so all that information is probably going, your body going, I can't cope with this. So that potentially could be at play. I've definitely heard of people developing intolerances after surgery. For me, lettuce was a no-go. It just gave me such a sore tummy and I just couldn't. And I was just like, why? It's supposed to be good for me. All these fun stories. But it's just, yeah, it's such a wild journey finding out what your stomach does and doesn't like. Often, I have a lot of clients that say fish can be quite an issue for them after surgery as well. Not just your fish and chips fish, but actually just fish in general can just sit a bit funny, or sometimes chicken can be another one, particularly for slivers. It just doesn't sit all that well. So it's just working out what your tummy does and doesn't like. But also anatomically after surgery, your stomach becomes a bit of a sieve, or like a not a sieve, a funnel. And so as it's kind of gurgling through, sometimes air gets trapped, and so that can cause a little bit of potentially the gas that she's
Mm.
experiencing. Also, if you're drinking with meals, particularly if you're using a straw. Now, again, I'm just
Mm.
assuming here. I don't know what they're actually doing, but sometimes that can add a little bit of air in there that can cause a bit of discomfort. Or she could be experiencing what us sleevers experience, which is called the foamies. And I wasn't sure from what she'd said. Like it sounds like when she's eating really heavy, rich proteins, it's like doing all right. But what some of us get after, particularly the sleeve, sometimes bypasses, is called the foamies, where basically one mouthful too much and it all kind of starts gurgling and kind of coming back up. It's almost like reflux bit of food where it just kind of starts building up pressure and coming up. So that could potentially also be at play. There's lots of different elements that it could be, so it's going to be a bit of trial and error for her, right?
Mm. Yeah. And also, I would like to think she's not drinking any fizzy drinks, but that definitely would also
Yeah.
do it a lot too.
Yes, even your sparkling water's got a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah.
of carbonation in it, so we need to make sure we absorb avoid that. Yeah, because any extra air in there is gonna, one, cause a lot of pain, and two, not gonna be that fun.
No.
Um, and we don't want to be, again, she's only 1 month post-op, so we don't want to be causing lots of extra pressure in there
Mm.
on that line. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to think what else could be at play. Protein shakes. So if you're drinking protein shakes that are really whey-based, which is why I developed a collagen-based protein powder, which I know some dietitians like, it's not complete protein. But if you're not using it as a meal replacement and you're just using it to top up your protein, great. The reason I don't like whey-based protein shakes, particularly for myself and also just in general for people post-surgery, is it causes a lot of bloating in your tummy. Just that way just seems to react. And again, it could be the lactose in it. It causes bloating, indigestion, and just doesn't make people feel very good. So if you are kind of suffering of reflux or any of that kind of stuff, it could be, if you're using whey-based protein, that could be at play as well. But also they taste out. Like I tried Optifast after surgery and I was just like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Awful. Oh gosh, I don't know
So
how
my
people keep
husband,
doing it.
my husband's done them a couple of times over the last few years, gone back to Optifast. I'm like, yeah, I'll do some with you. And I like have a quarter of one. I'm like, I can't do it. I don't know if it's PTSD or just, oh, not
Yeah.
good.
I feel like I did it on pre-op and that's really good. And straight after surgery and I don't need it anymore.
Yeah. But I've heard of dietitians, I'm not even kidding you, I've heard of dietitians that have said that people have to have 3 Optifasts straight after surgery. They should
Oh,
be having it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm like, no one can finish
oh
that.
gosh.
No one can
Yeah.
finish that. And like when you can eat 2 tablespoons per meal,
Yeah.
and they're expecting them to have 3 Optifasts per day. That's
Oh my
insane.
goodness. Yeah, you'll just be drinking it all day to try to get it
Yeah.
in.
And then how do you balance that with your water, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
mental. This is why we don't take advice from people who haven't actually lived it.
Yes.
I just sit there and I just wonder sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not all dietitians like
No.
that, but I just want to say for the ones that recommend that, please don't.
Yes.
Did you have any did you try any shakes or anything after surgery, or you just went straight to food?
I did, but not. I did go on to food. So even when I was still in the hospital, they gave me some food, which was really lovely because then I knew I was allowed to have that. But I did still have it, but I only had one shake for it, and I had the real food. And then I had just the added in the no flavor protein into my food, so I wasn't on shakes for very long after surgery, which I was
Oh,
really glad about.
yeah,
Because
and
even
so
during pre-op, I was meant to have 2 shakes in one meal, but it just went right through me. So my nutritionist said I could have 1 shake and 2 meals, which was really great. And yeah, so my stomach allowed that.
yeah, and I say that a bit in people pre-op as well, struggling with the OptiFast and looking for
Yeah.
alternatives. And there are alternatives out there. Talk to your team around what they're happy with because every team has a different opinion. I wish there was a little bit more of a universal standard for these things, but even the pre-op timelines are all different for everyone. I think you said you had a month, is that right, Maree?
No, I was 7 weeks.
7 weeks. Yeah, I knew it was a long
7 weeks.
time. I was like, holy
Yeah.
moly.
But I did it, so it was really good.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I could have. Like 7 weeks is a really long time.
Yes, yes. It's a very long time. But
And
I was
like
pretty
I
determined,
say
so
that as someone who's like doing really well long term, but I'm just like that I feel like some surgeons teams say like if you can't stick to this pre-op diet, you can't stick to surgery long term. Well, I call bullshit on that too. Because 7 weeks of liquid is not fun for anybody.
no.
Um,
Luckily I could have those meals though.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it
I
wasn't great.
no. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet you were just like you would watch people eat and it had just been like, oh my goodness.
Yes, yep. I think it was more harder when I was at work, and especially like, shared lunches and things. So that was quite difficult. And so then I tried to plan when I would have my shake, when I would have my first meal as late as possible, like around like midday, just because then I kind of got hungrier again, like in the afternoon. So I needed like my second meal. So I definitely, yeah, had to plan it the right way, but it was, yeah, it was long. But at work was, I think, the hardest for
Yeah. And I found that Optifast just didn't keep me full for very long. Like I would a couple hours and I was like,
me.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you get hangry, right? Because I don't know, I can't imagine I only did 2 weeks, but I can't imagine I was very fun to be around. Um, and I didn't have, I mean, the bariatric world's come a long way since between you and I having
Yeah.
surgery. And so I had a 15-minute phone call with a dietitian and she was just like, oh, look at this team's website. They have some ideas. And I was like, cool. Luckily my surgeon's gotten a lot better and he's got a little bit more of
Mm.
a plan in place now, but it wasn't good. At least I didn't have to pay for that, thank God.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't valuable. But yeah, just that pre-op life is and that initial month post-op is wild. It's such a journey. And if you're in the thick of this and you're listening to this right now, like we salute you. Like we get it. We know how hard. We know the struggle is real. Um, Actually, should I do read out the one around the food? I told Maree about one of these the other day. Should I read around the food general? Shall we talk about that?
Yes, yep.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna read it out. So, considering a food funeral tour, madness. I'm uh, I'm in Canada, so this is overseas. Starting my bariatric journey tomorrow and my first in-person consult. I assume plans start soon, but not now. Depending on the timeline and considering a small farewell tour for my favorite restaurants and cuisines to say goodbye to all stem any regret because I did have them one last time. It's not a long list, maybe 3 or 4 places. What do you all think? Do I have time? Is it a dumb idea? Am I setting myself backwards or reinforcing bad food ideology or something? Will it even work, or will I still mourn the loss of Mandarin and quality smash burger? That must be a very overseas style food, but guidance, please, oh wise ones. How wise are we, Marie? Um,
Yes.
Interesting. So originally when I saw this, I didn't read it all to be fair, but I thought, oh gosh, this is a pre-op person who is on the pre-op diet and they want to have a food farewell because I've seen it talked about online a lot. I remember when I had surgery, people were talking about food funerals. Um, did you consider one, Marie? Did you have one?
I did not have a food funeral, but I did have, quite a long time on pre-op, and there was one time where I did message my dietitian and ask if she was okay with having a certain meal from Carl's Jr., which I had been craving for quite a while. This was about 3 or 4 weeks before my surgery date, so there was still heaps of time. And she did say I could. First, she thought that I had actually already had it, but I hadn't had it. I was really good. And she just said, as long, and because I said that, I just didn't want to get too close, and then because I'd been craving it for quite a while, just almost obsessed with this one particular meal. And she allowed me to have it just as long as I didn't finish it. And that was exactly what I did. So I didn't have a funeral, but I did have that meal that I had been craving. But it's really interesting though, because you can still eat after surgery. And I just think, like it's it's so interesting that you just think, actually, no, I'm never going to be allowed those foods again, which is what I thought, and then I was just craving it more and more. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be allowed this. But actually, you are allowed it after. But I did ask, so yes, I had that, but I had still quite a few weeks before surgery. But I reckon if I didn't have it then, I would have been very close to surgery. Just with
It's
how obsessed
interesting,
I
eh?
was.
Like I had like a couple of days before surgery, I think. I can't remember exactly. Obviously, it's been a while. I think I do remember having like a kind, not a complete like treat meal, but something because I was in that mindset, right? Of I'm never gonna be able to eat like this again. But yeah, I think I had like steak and mushroom sauce and chips or something. And it was so good. Like, do you remember? Like, it was
Yes,
so good.
the best ever.
And so we're not condoning food farewells, but I'm just saying it was probably one of the best meals of my life. Um, because you've been so deprived for so long. And yeah, I think everyone has that moment of considering it. And I related it to when I was pregnant, and you know how they give you this list of all the foods that you can't eat when you're pregnant, and with my eldest, so this goes back to like the 3 kids ago. My elder when I was pregnant with my eldest, and she's 11 now, and I was just like, I'm having mad cravings for sushi. I must have been low on iodine or something, and I was like, I just want sushi. And my midwife's like, you can't have sushi. And I'm like, but I just want sushi. And so I ended up having sushi and quite addicted to sushi. I blame the ADHD in me that I just got really I get hyper fixated on foods. That's a real thing for me with my ADHD. Like I will just go through seasons of just, that's all I want in the day is that particular food. So yeah, sushi was it for me during pregnancy. Thank goodness we have really good food standards in New Zealand, and I went to a trusted shop. Like it wasn't somewhere that I knew. It was just kind of sitting in a cabinet all day. I put some measures in place for myself, and yeah, how good did it, like it just tasted so good, and I just like kind of really relate that to that kind of food funeral. And it's but much the same in that you can you can go without the stuff sometimes. In terms of that couple of weeks for that pre-op, however long, 7 weeks, Maree, of that pre-op. But you actually can go back to some of this food, but the quantities will never be the same again. And so I'm not advocating. I have a family member who had surgery as well, and they had it publicly, and they were at a seminar, and they said that it was wild because it was South Auckland, and at the seminar some of the people were asking, oh, when can I have KFC again after surgery? And yeah, and like he's like, what the heck, why are you having the surgery if you just want the KFC? But at the same time, like I get it, because you just want to know what your normal is. And the reality is you don't need a food funeral. If you have one, try and have it as far from surgery as you can so that your liver's still got time to shrink and you're not filled up with food before the surgery. Um, but the reality is that us long-termers know that I can have McDonald's now if I want to. Can I eat the whole burger? Nah. Do I want to eat the whole burger? Nah. Maree could go to Carl's Jr. today and she could buy a Carl's Jr. meal. Does it mean she wants to? Probably not. But the option is there and you can have little bits. And so I guess your perceived reality versus a long-term actual reality is so different. And I don't know if, for us when we saw around these food funerals, it was just a desperation of, I just really want the food, or if it actually came from a place of, I don't know. And then that first month really reiterates, right? Where that you're like, oh my gosh, is this the rest of my life? Am I going to be like this forever? And so it, it really isn't. I promise you it really isn't. And it's just a moment. And so if you can handle pregnancy without giving into the temptations, like I did not, then you'll be fine. If you didn't handle pregnancy and give into the temptations like I did, you'll also be fine. But it's just making sure that we don't spiral out of control, right? And so we all have our kryptonite food. And I think that's something that we work on quite a bit inside the Success Club and my one-on-one coaching, is around those kryptonite foods, those foods that are gonna just tailspin you. You start eating them and there's no going back. And again, I don't know if this is just from my ADHD perspective or if it's reality, but there's a good chunk of our community that are ADHD, so they are living the same cycles that I do. And just having that food that you're really fixated on. So for me, it was Coca-Cola after surgery. I shared it in the workshop the other day, hey, where it became, my surgeon's like, no more, you can't drink it anymore. And I was really good for 6 months until I hit the trial and error stage. And then I was like, oh, I actually can have this. Oh, it didn't make my tummy sore. And then, hello, spiraling out of control. And because I was still in the honeymoon stage, I was okay, which actually made it worse because I could keep going.
Yeah.
Because it didn't cause me weight gain. And, I started on the Coke, no sugar, so that was all right. And then I got pregnant at pretty much being on 1 year post-op. And I don't know, I just have I had this really deep ingrained story around babies because that was my third baby post-surgery. Oh, not post-surgery, my third child. But I'd already had two, and the stories had already been created that I was tired, I was up all night with these babies, and I just deserved the crappy food because it made me feel better. But it didn't make me feel better for very long. And then I was back to feeling like rubbish because I was doing the sugar high, the sugar roller coaster. And it was really hard to start to break some of those stories. And like I've done it now, but that was a crutch for me. And so when I got pregnant at a year post-op, and then all of a sudden, I lost a whole heap of weight in that first trimester. And so I got to my very lightest, which is about 3 kilos less than I am now. Obviously yo-yoed between a few places since then. But and people were calling me tiny, and I actually got a comment about being tiny today, and I'll circle back to that soon. But when I was, at that lowest, then I was like, well, I've got room. I've got wiggle room. I'm at my lowest. Like I don't actually want to be this small. And then it's like, and then adding the baby on, I was tired and breastfeeding and hungry. Breastfeeding makes you so bloody hungry. And Maree's like, it's been a while since I had a baby, but I get it.
Yes.
And then I just kind of started snowballing a little bit. And luckily I didn't get too high in my weight regain, but I did go from, at my lowest during pregnancy, I got to 70 kilos. And then I think by the time I had her, I was up at 83-ish, I think. Dropped back down to 75 after having her. But then it was that kind of year afterwards that things kind of started creeping back up. And then I got to about 85 and kind of sat there for a good couple of years. And then at 85, I got pregnant with my next one because there's 3 years between her and my youngest. And then it kind of started that spiral again and then got up to 92 kilos and I was gutted. But got back from that, thankfully. So grateful for that. So grateful I had the tools, right?
Yes.
But yeah, it's just such a wild mind set to be in that you've got all these stories that feed into why you do the things you do. And I got to drinking 2.5 liters of Coke a day because that was my vice before surgery.
Yeah.
That was my coping strategy. Whenever I was tired, I was like, I'm just gonna drink coffee. Gonna drink Coke because, and you know what the biggest part of that story was? Well, because I don't drink hot drinks, so I'm allowed to have caffeine. That was literally the story I was telling myself that I'm allowed caffeine. And like until an extent, I still do have that story sitting there, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but how does that serve me? And then so, that's what we do inside our programs is actually look at those stories. And it's not perfect, and you're never going to be perfect. But actually looking at, okay, well, what is the story? And man, like I always say, I'm only a couple of steps ahead of everyone. Sometimes I'm a couple of steps behind. But it's really around looking at what is actually going on. What are these stories? Where are they coming from? What have you made this mean about yourself? Did you have a crutch at all, Maree? Like, was there something that
Coffee, which to be fair, I still drink a bit of coffee. I am quite the fan of that. I also did previously drink alcohol quite a bit. So I had actually stopped before surgery, so I've not had any. I do have the 0% beers sometimes, but I stay away from that. I'm very mindful of the addiction transfer, and just with my personality, I just know that I will, it will become a problem. So I chose to stay away from that. But coffee, I'm still working on. But I do have the 99% sugar-free Avalanche one, with a bit more instant coffee as well. So I do quite like that. But yeah, so I think coffee is my thing.
And transference addiction is so real. I felt I'm like, this is a true ADHD conversation, eh, Maree? We're just jumping around everywhere. But it's so good. And that transference addiction after surgery. And I so love that you have been really strong on that conviction of, I know alcohol's been a problem for me and I just need to not. And that's where I want to catch people where they're at, where you just don't do what I did and don't go back to the Coke and don't end up drinking 2 liters of full sugar Coke a day, because it's so much harder to get rid of it once it's back. But if you can just get rid of it,
Yeah.
then that can help. And like, obviously there were stories that caused mine, and Maree will have stories around her alcohol as well. And that enough is enough moment, that's why we have surgery. And so I think, yeah, I'm so proud of you for not just drawing that line in the sand and actually just like, no, I'm just not doing it. And other people transfer to shopping, and some people have sex and porn addictions, and some people transfer to all sorts of things. Some people throw themselves into their family life. Some people throw themselves into work. Work can be a really good. But at the end of the day, you're just hunting for a dopamine hit. You're just hunting to feel something. I don't know. There's an element in yourself. I hate that I say this, but it is so true. But there's an element in yourself that you don't like.
Mm.
And that's why we do what we do, because we want to make ourselves feel better.
Yes. Yes.
And it all comes from a place of feeling. And so if there's something you don't like about yourself, you're trying to build yourself up. And, again, I'm not perfect in that, but I'm aware of it. And so if we can make you guys aware of it, great.
Yes, yeah. And I think just getting those, those tools and strategies, like the real life stories. So I learn a lot from people's stories, and I can then really relate it to my own, lifestyle. And I'm like, oh, that's a real, great thing. And, like, for example, somebody was saying how they find it really hard, to say no every time they've got cookies in their pantry. But it's so much easier to say no once at the grocery store than it is to say no every time you're going into the kitchen, and so, like, hearing that, I really related to that, and so that was really interesting. So I love hearing that, and that's just another way to help me to help myself.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm actually really selfish in the fact that I do this because it keeps me on track.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I love what I do 100%. I love the connections, I love the community, but I live and breathe it every day, and it helps me stay on track.
Yes. Just so awesome, eh? Like, and just, to then also be able to help other people as well. So it's just really exciting.
And just show up authentically. Like,
Yeah.
I don't pretend, like, I've never and will never touch injectables, and I want to make that really clear, and I'm not anti them. And I think that's the big difference is, I won't do them myself. And I don't actually think there's anything wrong with them. Research is still building, all that kind of stuff. But the reason I won't touch them is because I believe in the tools that I have. I believe in the toolbox that I have for my ongoing success. I lost 22 kilos of regain with the tools that I have, without injectables, without medicating, by just having these tools that set me up for success. And so, obviously I regain. I'm not perfect, but the reality is that I won't touch the injectables. If you want to use injectables, go for gold. Like, if that's going to be part of your toolkit to lead you to success, great. But it is a tool. And I think that's really important. And when we look at our mindset, when we look at the food concepts, it's actually looking at, well, am I just masking the symptom? And that's what we do, right? And inside the club, inside our coaching, it's not around, like, I will never poo-poo anyone's tools that they've got, but we just try and work on strengthening new ones and making sure that you're dealing with the food noise, you're dealing with what's actually causing your eating. Like I said, those stories are very real, and we all have them, and you make them mean something about yourself. And so, yeah, that's my rant around why I will never do injectables, because I'm authentic. I'm not, you know, I'm calling this out. I'm authentic in the fact of what my journey is. I'm truthful in sharing where I'm at, where I've been, and how I've got there. And yeah, it's not through using injectables. Again, not anti them. I'm just saying that I totally stand by the tools that I teach, and I'm living it.
Because I never want to go on a diet again. Like I'm just like finished with it, and I just kind of really relate that to being on a diet, and I just don't want another diet. I
Yeah.
just like the whole lifestyle, and yeah, sometimes I will eat something that I shouldn't eat, and that's okay. Like I'm okay with it, and if I put on a couple of kgs, that's okay. I'll lose it again. Like it's. I just don't want a diet. I want a sustainable, happy, healthy life.
Lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah.
A new life, a new lesson in life. That's why you had
Yeah.
surgery to begin with. That's
Yes.
why I had
Yeah.
surgery.
Yeah.
I don't teach a diet, right? You know that, Maree. Like I don't believe in
Yeah.
diets because I got plenty of evidence to say that they don't work.
Yep.
Or
They
they
do
might
not.
work, but then it all comes back on. And
Yes.
that's actually at the core of why I don't necessarily believe, well, I believe in the injectables, but I just know I've seen people rebound back from them. The minute you stop, then because you haven't dealt with the food noise, you haven't dealt with why you're eating all those behavioral patterns, you just start eating again. And it just guts me. It really guts me because I want to see people succeed. I really do. Like I just, I'm like getting emotional now because I just it's devastating when people get sold a lie. People get sold this quick fix, the sure thing. The reality is, you work with me, it's not a quick fix. It's not a sure thing. It's work. And you've got to continue to work on yourself so that you can succeed long term. You've got to put in the hard yards. The whole saying Rome was built in a day. I love my little things, but it's so true. Like we've got to build the foundations for your success. Otherwise, you're building it on a hill under a river, and the bank is getting eaten away.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that's why you see so many people regain, after even over 2 years, but like 5 years, a lot of people have regained quite a lot because they've not really done the mind work, and they've just kind of really relied on the surgery. But that's just a tool, and you've really got to put in that work. Like it's lifelong. And yeah, so it's not a quick fix. The surgery wasn't a quick fix, but you definitely can regain that pretty quickly if you don't put in that work.
Yeah. And the thing is that you can come back. Like, and I think
Yes.
people feel like, when you get stuck in that failure mentality that, oh, this is me done. I screwed this one up too.
Mm.
But the reality is that you only fail when you stop trying. And I truly believe that. Like, if you stop trying, then yeah, you're gonna live the reality that you construct. You're gonna live in that place of, well, I failed, I'm gonna fail at everything. And misery loves company, right? So you're gonna attract other
Yeah.
people that fail. And
Yeah. Yeah.
but if you want to create, like Maree said, a sustainable world, like a sustainable lifestyle where there's no yo-yo dieting. I'm not going to tell you off for eating chippies, but I am going to say if your chippies are becoming something that you're doing every single day, or your chocolates are becoming something you're doing every day, and it's actually becoming a bit of a problem, then we're going to look at that. And we're going to look at why that's happening. We're going to look at the patterns and behaviors behind that because it's not you that's the issue. Your eating is a symptom. Your weight is a symptom of something else much bigger than that. And so when we look at that, and when we look at what is nutrition? What should you be fueling your body with after surgery? It's not around taking anything away from you. It's around, okay, what can we switch out that might maybe will keep that weight a little bit more stable for you?
Mm. But it's really
Being
good, right?
real.
Like getting those different ideas. Like so for example, I really love lasagna, but so instead of the pasta, I put in the low carb wraps, and that's my pasta. So, like it's just doing those little switches. So that's still sustainable for me because
Yeah.
that's something that I love, and so I get really excited for it. But it's much
Because food
healthier.
should be fun. Food should be
Yes,
exciting. That
yes.
first year post-up food sucks.
Yeah.
But it does come back and it does get fun and exciting. But it's
Yes.
just like, yeah, Maree, like just the little tweaks that actually make it slightly better for you, slightly easier for you to stay in control. Because I think actually a lot of the time, what it comes down to for most people is a power and control thing. Like you want to control the uncontrollable. And then you beat yourself up massively when the stuff that you can't control happens. And then it's just a vicious cycle. And so cycle breakers around here, that's what Success Club is all about. That's what the Bariatric Blueprint is it's creating a new lifestyle plan for you that works with you. So I'm really big on creating systems for an individual that work with their lifestyle. Because if I tell a shift worker you have to eat breakfast at 8 a.m., lunch at 12 p.m., and dinner at 6 p.m., and they're like, but I'm asleep,
Mm.
it's not going to work. And obviously, there's hormones at play and all that kind of stuff. But that's the reality is that we need to be looking at people as a human being. And we all have different shit going on in our lives. There's, I used to do 12-week programs and, you'd sign someone up and you'd watch their life over 3 months and you're like, I know exactly what's going on and why it's
Mm.
going on for you because life happens, right? It's not all linear. You've got coping skills, like I said at the start,
Mm.
coping skills of your lifetime of using food as an emotional support.
Yeah.
And if you continue down that path, cool. But if you want to choose something different, let me know because
Mm.
that's what we change. And those are the habits, those are the behaviors that we change. Like I went, postpartum, a year of me eating my feelings because I was tired, like being tired is an emotion. I could have gone to sleep, yes, but I also had three other kids that really depended on me to get them places to do all the things. So I was living in this perpetual state of being tired. So yeah, I ate my feelings. I ate to make myself feel better so that I had the energy to keep going. And so when we
Mm.
start to look at, oh, well, that's the pattern that's going on, how do we change that? How do we nutritiously fuel your body so that you've actually got the food in your system that's actually going to stop that cycle of the insulin spikes and troughs. Um, but yeah, so that is, I guess that's it for this session, right, Maree? I think we've chatted about a whole heap of that first year or so post-op. And yeah, we'll go into more. We'll talk around some of these other posts in the next episode. But thank you for listening, for those of you that have listened or those of you that have watched. What we will do is I'll put in the comments how to buy our Baribody collagen protein powder, which is completely tasteless. It is nice and gentle on your tummy. I designed it so that it wasn't going to cause all that bloating that I talked around the whey-based protein powder. I also put in a link to book in a chat with Maree so that you can have a chat and see if any of our programs suit. But if not, thanks for listening along and catch us on the next episode. I don't know what we'll be talking about, but it'll be something interesting, I'm sure. Otherwise, we'll just laugh the whole time.
Love
Oh,
it.
so thanks, Maree. I appreciate you being here. And I think, yeah, we're going to do a little bit more regularly, both of us, just giving different perspectives, different parts of the post-op journey. And I'll start to bring some of the other coaches from the team in as well. Sometimes it might be a big panel of all of us. Sometimes it might just be me and Maree. But I think it's nice to have someone to chat to. So yeah, having me and Maree going forward is going to be really cool on this Baribody podcast. So thanks so much for Maree, and I will catch you next week for another catch up.